Hello, BookTube. I've got some new arrivals for you here, some things that will stand in good stead as a Friday TBR, as a weekend reading type thing. Quite a few of these things I'll either be reading or rereading this weekend. And some of them, although they are way down the line, are very intriguing. So I may break my... Usually I like to read only books that are in the month or the coming month, rather than range far ahead. But I break that rule all the time if the book is interesting enough. The first two are reprint volumes. Everyman's Library reprint volumes that I really like their current design. They've had it for years now. And the first one is the complete fiction of Nella Larson, who, see, it's in this design. Really, really nice design. You will know this author from her novel Passing. But this also has Quicksand and her short stories. And these are lovely, lovely things with the cloth binding and the cloth bookmark and whatnot. A wonderful reprint line. I also have from them Never Let Me Go by Ishiguro. That is, I think, one of his most popular novels. I'm not 100% sure what it's doing in the Everyman Library. And I can't off the top of my head remember if this is the first one, the first entry by this author. I can't help but think that Remains of the Day has already been in Everyman's Library. But I haven't reread Never Let Me Go since it originally came out. I've only read it the one time. When did it originally come out? 2005. So that's 20 years ago. So I need to give this another read. Then we have a work of pop philosophy. I don't always get along well with works of pop philosophy, but I will give this a try. I believe this is going to be a paperback original for $20. This is by Scott Samuelson, and it is called Rome as a Guide to the Good Life, a Philosophical Grand Tour. It's a lovely thing. It's got original illustrations all throughout in halftone colors. So they're not just, I mean, there are black and white illustrations in here, but there are also these color things as well. And this takes you through the city of Rome. See, there's black and white. There's the menorah of the great temple being carried off when the Romans destroyed the temple in AD 70. But let's see what we have here. This is a guide to Rome for those interested in both La Dolce Vita and what the ancient Romans called the Vita Beata, the good life. The philosopher Scott Samuelson offers a thinker's tour of the Eternal City, rooting ideas from the philosophical tradition within the geography of the city itself. As he introduces the city's great works of art and its most famous sites, Samuelson also gets to the heart of the knotty ethical and emotional questions they pose. With his help, we came to understand why Rome has inspired philosophers such as Lucretius and Seneca, poets and artists such as Horace and Caravaggio, filmmakers such as Fellini, and adventurers such as Rosa Bathurst. A thoughtful philosophical companion and eclectic guidebook, this book is meant for anyone who wants not just a change of scenery, but a change of soul. Mighty high claims for the city of Rome, which I love. I love the city of Rome. The city of Rome and I have, let's just say, a long and colorful history. Although the last time that I was there, the last time that I will ever be there, the height of the philosophical experience was rather inept pocket picking, where the would-be thief wasn't very good at what he was doing, or didn't think that I would notice one way or another, thought I was just another bovine American tourist, although nowhere else at the time when I was there did anyone mistake me for an American. The most they were willing to say is that I was European of some kind. That pickpocket attempt did not succeed. The whole key to pickpocketing, there are two keys to successful pickpocketing. Either A, the victim never knows you did it, which is what usually happens in cities. Pickpockets get really, really good. The victim never knows they've been robbed. They don't find out until they're in the hotel or the next day and they try to buy food. That's candidate number one. A seasoned or experienced traveler can thwart that easily. Put your valuables where it's impossible for them to get at casually. And you're done. You've thwarted it successfully. The other type of pickpocketing is where the pickpocket jets away, where they're hoping that you don't notice, but they're counting on the fact that they will simply speed away from you. They will run away from you, and you will not be able to catch them. You won't even be able to figure out where they went. And the last time I was in Rome, the inept pickpocket attempt that was tried on me was the second kind, which absolutely will not work if the person, the victim, the mark, has 10 dogs with him. right there when you do the pickpocketing. A dog can outrun you, and a dog can find you no matter where you are. So it didn't work. My pickpocket was cornered, corralled, and was tearfully apologizing when I took my billfold back. But anyway, so Rome as a guide to the good life. There's not all good in Rome. A drug epidemic, among other things. Then we have something that we've seen before on this channel. I just thought I'd show you the print copy and maybe read you a little. This is by David Scheel, with illustrations by Laurel Scheel, and this is Many Things Under a Rock, The Mysteries of Octopuses. And this book, it looks at how we can study an animal with perfect camouflage and secretive habits, how a soft and boneless creature can defeat sharks and eels while thriving as a predator of the most heavily armored animals in the sea, how octopus bodies work, and how does a solitary animal form friendships, entice mates, and outwit rivals. So in other words, classic roaming octopus natural history, although only, I think, a couple of species. I think the author looks at only a couple of species. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I remember which ones he does. Okay, the giant Pacific octopus, the gloomy octopus, and the day octopus. So not all of them, but still, that's going to be fascinating. That comes out in June, so that's right around the corner. Then we have another work of natural history. This is coming out in October, but it is a huge temptation for me. This is an author I love. This is an author with unbelievable credit in the Bank of Steve, and this author's next book, is in a subgenre that I love. If you watch my library tour, you know that I have a dozen books like this. And this is the subgenre of natural history where the author adopts an owl. It's very popular. Owls don't seem to mind all that much. They seem to adapt fairly well. This is by Carl Safina, and it's called Alfie and Me. Comes out in October, and it's the story of the author adopting a bedraggled little owl. I wonder if I can get the picture. Yeah, that's what Alfie looks like when he's brand new and on the brink of whether or not he's going to survive. And it's the pandemic. It's the height of the pandemic, and Safina takes the owl in and saves the owl and raises the owl. And then when it comes time for the owl to be released back into the wild, Alfie decides to stay very close to the house and raise a family within easy sight of the house. Because it was not a traumatic experience at all. It was a bonding experience. I have read so many books about people who adopt owls. I love almost all of them. So for one of my favorite natural history authors to write a book like that is a joy, a pure joy. So then we have, this is a fascinating thing. This is out already, I believe. This is a finished hardcover by Will Soffren. And it's called All Hands on Deck, a modern-day high-seas adventure to the far side of the world. And that's an antique sailing vessel. It's a replica of the Rose. And the far side of the world, and the subtitle is very aptly chosen because this is the story of the movie Master and Commander, Far Side of the World, Peter Weir's movie, starring Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany, adapting Patrick O'Brien's Aubrey and Maturin books, at least a couple of them, mashing them together into one plot line. Peter Weir agreed to direct the movie on the condition that he be able to use the Rose, this replica of the Rose, and it had to be therefore sailed all the way around from one side of the country to the other. That's the map that it had to go on. And this is the author was on that crew as an aimless 20-something, and he tells the story in this book. Fantastic! Can't wait to get to it. I think it's out already, so I don't think I need to wait. Then this next one is an author I really like. I never miss a book. This is John Ray, the author of Lowboy, and this is Gone to the Wolves, which, as you can almost tell just from the type font of the cover, is his love letter to heavy metal music. Let's see what we have here. There is the properly doom and gloomy end papers. Kip, Kira, and Leslie are outliers, even in the metal scene they love. In arch-conservative backwoods Florida in the 1980s, just listening to heavy metal can get you arrested, but the risk is worth taking because music is what leads them to each other. As different from one another as they are, the three form a family of sorts, one safer and more loving than the broken homes they come from. Together they make a pilgrimage from Florida's swamp country to LA's fabled Sunset Strip, but the beautiful new life they dreamed of soon proves a mirage. Kira finds herself drawn to even darker and more extreme strains of metal, drifting towards a place where her two friends, for all their love, can't follow. On a trip to Europe for her 22nd birthday, she simply vanishes in the middle of a show. Years later, the shocking truth about her disappearance reunites Kip and Leslie, whose search for her takes them from California to the snowbound woods of Norway. But bringing Kira home will require a greater sacrifice than either can imagine. The three of them at first, in their salad days, consider themselves to be a cult of three, the world's smallest cult of extreme heavy metal fans. I am not a fan of heavy metal at all. I don't understand the appeal of it. I think it can only be understood by a species that has such poor hearing as humans do. But I'm going to love this book. I feel almost certain that I will. This author, we're on the exact same wavelength in terms of what makes a satisfying novel. So then we have talk about on the same wavelength for a satisfying novel. We have Joe Baker, the author of Longbourn. I have liked everything by this author that I've read. Nothing quite as much as Longbourn, but this is Joe Baker's new book. And I don't have a sheet for this, so this could be out already. This is the Midnight News. The war-torn cover there. Let's see what we have here. It is 1940, and 20-year-old Charlotte Richmond watches from her attic window as enemy planes fly over London. Still grieving her beloved brother, who never returned from France, she is trying to keep herself out of trouble, holding down a typist job in the Ministry of Information, sharing gin and confidences with her best friend Elena, and dodging her overbearing father. On her way to work, she often sees the boy who feeds the birds, a source of unexpected joy amid the rubble. But every day brings new scenes of devastation, and after yet another heartbreaking loss, Charlotte has an uncanny sense of foreboding. Something is stalking in the darkness, targeting her friends, and now he's following her. So, a kind of a thriller set inside wartime London. It would work really well for booktubers at war in July, but I'm not going to wait that long. I've got the finished copy. Then we have Clancy Martin. Clancy Martin did a novel called How to Sell, which I think featured prominently on my list for that year of the worst books of the year. But Clancy Martin has a troubled personal history as well. Do you have a sheet for this thing? Let's see here. This book comes out in mid-May, and it charts that troubled history. This is a work of nonfiction. This is How Not to Kill Yourself, Portrait of a Suicidal Mind. Because Clancy Martin has tried to kill himself 10 times. And, you know, he's a recovering alcoholic, and he could try again. He makes no bones about that. And he describes those attempts in this book and the weird split mind reaction to them between, on the one half, I am planning to take my own life, and I'm going to try to orchestrate it so that it makes the least impact on the people I love. And on the other hand, the same brain thinking, boy, I'm happy I didn't ever succeed in doing that. An unbelievably touchy subject, and I would argue in American discourse, taboo. We are too quick to make all kinds of judgments one way or another about the whole subject of suicide. And, you know, I feel a little, knowing now what I know about this author's personal history, I feel a little guilty, just a tiny bit, about savaging his book, his novel, How to Sell. But then I absolve myself of feeling crummy about that, because when you put a book out in the world, that's what you're doing. On one level, critics, readers, absolutely have to make themselves not care whether the author is on the brink of suicide or not. If you're on the brink of suicide, don't put a book into the world. But don't put a book into the world and ask everybody to handle it with kid gloves. So I'm kind of absolving myself of feeling terrible about that. But one thing that I can honestly say is that How to Sell did show remarkable literary ability. If that were the only element in making a successful work of fiction, then it wouldn't have been on my worst of list. But I'm looking forward to this book getting me away from inept fiction writing and still preserving that literary ability. It's an unbelievably awkward, sensitive, uncomfortable subject, but I'm okay with that kind of reading experience. I think we all should be. So that's on the list. Then we have something that we've seen already. This is a lot like the Octopus book. We've seen it already. But this is the big finished copy. I just wanted to show it to you. This is The Earth Transformed by Peter Frankopan, the author of The Silk Roads. This is his big new book about how pivotal a role climate-related issues have played in human history. And that once you go through human history and start looking for that, you start seeing it. where otherwise in conventional histories from, say, the 20th century, when the climate wasn't lost, historians would often talk about other things. They would talk about the will of merchants or the manifest destiny of military empires or whatnot. Frankopan looks at that in kind of an environmentally sensitive X-ray, and it works really well. I'm glad to have the finished physical copy because it's definitely worth a reread. And then we'll finish up with something that is front and center to all of us, to everybody on BookTube. Do I have a date for this? Do I have a date for you? It's a finished copy, so it's probably soon. It's probably a May release. Oh no, April 5th. This is out already. This is by Adrian Johns, and it is called The Science of Reading. What actually is happening when we read? What are we actually doing? And how can that be manipulated? And maybe how is that unfairly distributed? Obviously, if there's an infrastructure that can make you either a better supported reader or a worse supported reader, if you're especially a kid, you're not going to have any say over that. You'd be lucky if you have parents who can help you. But if they also were victim of that same infrastructure, then maybe they can. This is out already. I have not read it. I never got an advanced copy of this, so this is definitely on the TBR for this weekend. I think it's fascinating, just a fascinating subject. So there you go. That is a Friday TBR, new releases. I don't know what I'll call this. We have The Science of Reading. We have The Earth Transformed. We have How Not to Kill Yourself by Clancy Martin. We have The Midnight News by Joe Baker. These are well-known names to me, most of them. We have Gone to the Wolves by John Ray. We have All Hands on Deck. How did the ship used in the filming of Far Side of the World, Master and Commander, how did it get onto the set in Los Angeles, in Baja, California? We have Alfie and Me by Carl Safina, his new book about adopting an owl. We have Many Things Under a Rock, a new natural history of octopuses. We have Rome as a Guide to the Good Life. What can the Eternal City teach us about the now? And we have two Everyman's Libraries. We have Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go and Passing and Quicksand and Stories by Nella Larson of Harlem Renaissance fame. So there you go. Nice Friday reads to cogitate on, and some new releases for you to know about. But anyway, that's it for me. I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.